Hello everybody, my name is Beyers, and this is my TED Talk on biomimicry. So my TED Talk, my research question was, how does biomimetics in architecture affect our environment and our health? Biomimetics is just the same thing as biomimicry. So what is biomimicry? It's literally just copying nature. And more specifically for me, it's copying nature in architecture. So bio, meaning nature, and mimicry meaning to copy/imitate something. It's that simple. If you just sound it out, you'll know what it means. So a great example of biomimicry is the Eden Project. Sorry for the really low quality images. The Eden Project is just bubbles, pretty much. They're big greenhouses, and the terrain that they built this on is always changing because it's clay. So since they made it out of bubbles, it's like warps to the terrain like bubbles do. So I want to get into the history of biomimicry. So early biomimicry, so it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. Ever since 500 BC is Lu Ban. He's the inventor of the umbrella and the saw. He literally put a leaf over his head and boom, you have an umbrella. And the saw, there were some jagged bushes and he cut himself on it and he's like, ooh, I could make that. I could cut other things. There, you have the saw. And then you also have Leonardo da Vinci. He's the inventor of the first flying machine. It is based off a bird. And the way he was able to do this is because he spent so much time out in nature. He was able to study it and become one with nature pretty much. And then you have George D. Menstrual, the inventor of the Velcro. One day he was walking in the woods with his dog, and his dog brushed up against the burrs, and the burrs stuck to his dog's fur. And this gave him the idea of sticking two things together with the burrs and dog fur. But I found some more examples of early biomimicry. The Inuits lived in igloos for a little bit and used igloos for hunting and stuff. They found the idea of polar bears. So low quality. So as you can see, there's two examples of, one example of an Inuit igloo and then one example of polar bears. So they both start lower down and then climb up into their main sleeping area and just where they do everything. And they both have a hole for air, or a ventilation hole, and they sleep higher than where they enter. So heat gets trapped inside the igloo. And this has been around for, honestly, we don't even know. Because we only knew about it when people first were starting to come to America and the Arctic. So how did biomimicry become popular then? Well, this woman, Janie, wrote books on biomimicry. So in 1997, she wrote her first book, Biomimicry, Innovation Inspired by Nature. And in this book, she described what biomimicry is and how it can be used for stuff like Velcro, flying machines, windmills, and even architecture. She has a broad explanation of biomimicry in her book. So I want to briefly talk about some of the health benefits of biomimicry. It can affect your mental and physical health. For the physical health, it can greater increase recovery time. It can lower your heart rate and increase well-being. And that's the same with mental health, because it can help with depression, anxiety, and improves your mood. And this is just being in nature, but that's not really my topic. So I want to talk about more architecture and nature. So some of the nature impacts has less of an impact, obviously, because it's the people who are designing these buildings are thinking of nature and their surroundings when building these. But when building regular homes, they aren't. They're only thinking about space where humans can live, not animals or nature. And creating regular houses creates over 50 million tons of embodied carbon emissions every year. And biomimicry, we don't have the same study because it's somewhat new, and there's a lot less biomimicry buildings than just regular buildings and homes. But regular homes impact nature because the urban sprawl leading to the loss of natural habitats, increased greenhouse emissions, and reduced air and water quality. But with biomimicry, it encourages conservation, there's less CO2 emissions, and it's way more efficient. And it can produce oxygen, like I will show in my next example. And biomimicry just is so much better for the environment and humans, pretty much. So, do you know what climbing ivy is? I'm guessing you all do. Well, a study by Smith made solar ivy, which is just solar panels, but in the shape of leaves. And what these leaves do, they can pretty much stick to any surface because they're just leaves on wire mesh, and you can mold them to anything, just like how these vines mold to homes and brick and everything, pretty much. And each one of these individual leaves can produce almost 0.6 to 4 watts per leaf, respectively. And they have thousands of leaves on each one. And they can be adjusted, just like how leaves grow on buildings. They can form to any shape in any way. And it even helps heat gain and heat loss. Another example of biomimicry is the Eastgate Center. So I've talked about this multiple times. It is modeled after a termite hill, which a termite hill can bring in heat during night and expel heat during the day to keep it at average temperature. So here we have cool air coming in from the bottom, and each room heats up to have an average temperature, and then that really hot air gets expelled through the chimneys or the roof. And there are some crazy benefits to this. It's 90% less energy for ventilation than conventional buildings of its size, which is a lot. And as you can see here, this is what the termites do. In the night, hot air is circulated and the cold air is on the outside, so it's average temperature inside. But in the morning, these two circulate because hot heat is on only the right side, but cold air is on the left because of the night still. And it circulates and circulates and circulates all day. So it's an average temperature of, I'm not really sure, but good enough for the ants to live in and be comfortable. It also is leveraging natural systems for building regulation, reduces its carbon footprint, making the construction process sustainable and eco-friendly. So this building has less of an impact on nature than regular buildings, even though it's in the middle of a city in Zimbabwe. And that's why it gets so hot and so cold at night, because it's Zimbabwe. Another example I have is the Tao Zu Yinhua. I cannot pronounce that name, sorry. It's in this district of Taiwan. It is replicated of a DNA strip. It has plants on each level, I think 22 individual levels that have 20,000 trees and shrubs combined. And it absorbs around 130 tons of carbon dioxide emissions each year, which is pretty good if you ask me. And it can produce oxygen, so the air is cleaner around this building and in the city because of this. And this is a really cool example because, one, it looks really cool. I heard all your and it is so good for nature because it pretty much is nature. because nature is intertwined with this building. One more example I have is the Tokyo subway. So the Tokyo subway spent so long trying to design an efficient way for people to get around the city. But I believe in 20-something, they put a slime mold, a single-celled slime mold in the center of the city and put little pieces of food at each subway exit. And within 26 hours, it completely redid the Tokyo subway system. They measured this off 3 metrics: the cost, the travel time, and the vulnerability. The vulnerability of the travel time. So it is, I believe, 10–20% more efficient than the normal Tokyo network, which they spent decades trying to do this. And the slime mold did it in 26 hours, which is crazy. And it's a single-celled slime mold. I think that's like crazy. These examples are just a few examples of what biomimicry really is. And I could go on for a while talking about just the examples, but I don't want to talk about them for too long. So, does biomimetics in architecture affect our environment and our health? Well, yes. Because it affects our health because it's able to give back to the environment, and the environment gives to us. It's a pretty mean cycle. And if we're able to harness biomimicry and harness how nature gives to us, we'll be able to have so much more benefits than just a regular house. Because regular homes just have bare minimum benefits, like living, and all, just so you can live in the building. But biomimicry has so many more benefits, because, like, as I said, this building, it gives back to nature by absorbing tons of carbon dioxide. And the Eastgate Center, it's less pricey because of the heating and cooling. You don't have to put hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into just the heating and cooling. And we can connect with nature more by being able to do this. So it does affect our health, and it very much affects our environment, because it has so much less of an impact, and if we're able to control it more, we'll be able to harness our connection with nature and better understand it. So, yeah, any questions?
All right. Thank you very much, Beyers.